Good afternoon, and today we have a pleasure of interviewing my very special friend, scientist. I want to say doctor, but she's a doctor. She's PhD doctor, uh, Dr. Camille Zenobia. She is inventor and I don't know producer of these beautiful remedies. I know you don't see it, but I have, and I'm going to demonstrate it. It's called OSSA Natural Oral Care. That's the product for us. She created for us to save our oral health and naturally actually all health. And today we're going to talk about that in detail. So good afternoon, Camille.
Hi, thank you for inviting me here today. It's good to be
And
here.
and by the way, Camille has a podcast called Let's Get Oral, and you have chance to listen to that and learn all about microbiome and proper oral care under the modern science development. You're going to find the link to that underneath this interview. And again, thank you very much to our audience. If you have trouble sleeping or sleep next to snoring partner, you're going to find a lot of useful information from today's interview. Bad sleep very much related to some problems with overall health. And if you're a medical professional who, just like us, are very passionate to help patients to sleep, breathe, or just live happier, healthier, better, this program gonna be for you. We're gonna talk about all intricate ways to microbiome and how this microbiome of our human species at the present moment is on the way of destruction and what you can do to make it better. But let me first tell you the full information about Camille Zenobia. So first of all, we met on a conference called Collaboration Cure. It was Academy of Systemic Connection and Physiological Medicine and Dentistry were together, and she introduced me to her beautiful products. And today I'm going to test it and give you the first-hand experience. But she is accomplished oral scientist. She become very passionate about this bacteria called Porphyromonas gingivalis during her PhD, what she did in UPenn. And then she had a lot of experience working with Colgate. And doing all this research, she realized what she can invent something, what's going to help a lot of people to decrease inflammation in the mouth and in the same time all over the body. And she is a great speaker, and I listened to her presentations. And as I mentioned, again, she has a podcast, Let's Get Oral, and every 2 weeks you can learn a lot about microbiome and oral biology. And my first question to you, Camille, what's your journey? How you become so passionate about oral care?
Oh, that's a great question. When I went into my PhD program, it was really because I had been struggling with the idea of why some people get sick and others don't. And I ended up going down this microbiology, immunology landscape to understand the mechanisms involved in host pathogen relationships. And I just assumed that I would end up in infectious disease. And I have definitely played in that realm and love it very much. But what has really piqued my interest is really the lack of understanding around mucosal immunology as it relates to our oral and host conversation that happens in the mouth specifically. Our mouth is actually determining how we relate to the world through food and air and environmental particles. And so, if our mouth is full of inflammation, it alters the way that we can uh, relate to our environment. And I think that we're seeing that with all of our systemic issues these days. In addition to that, when we deplete the oral microbiome, like we do in many of our oral hygiene products, we remove this very important metabolic feature that our oral microbiome provides. And so, you know, a long time ago, 125 years ago, we started out with this oral health premise using toothpaste, but it was really based in this germ theory of removal. And now that we can appreciate what a healthy oral microbiome can do by way of creating a healthy immune landscape, protecting us from pathogens, stimulating us and letting us know when trouble is here, we have to protect it, as well as the oral microbiome provides good heart health through nitric oxide production. So there's all these features, and we're still learning more every day. But by depleting our friends, we're
Yeah.
creating a really awful potential for just having consistent metabolic disorders, which have been a huge feature of why some people get sick and others don't, especially during COVID times.
No, this is a beautiful answer. And I'm going to bring a topic from yesterday. I had, and I'm always wondering, some patients, they don't have a way to locate the toothbrush, period. I mean, they said to me, I brush, but I look at the mouth and I can take a shovel and get the plaque out. And
Right.
we do that in the office on everyday basis. But when we probe those patients, we have, a lot of tartar plaque and sometimes very little response from the body. I'm talking about bleeding. And there are
Right.
a lot of people who absolutely know where the toothbrush located, and a lot of other tools located, floss, water pick, all of that. But I would probe them and it would be like Red Sea.
Right.
Literally
Lots of blood.
read a lot of blood. And I was always puzzled. And in my office, I have such a wonderful team, especially in hygienic department. We're also passionate to make people bleeding free, because I,
Right.
just like you mentioned, feel what the mouth, or especially the gum, it's open portal to the heart.
Yes.
So if gums
Yes.
are bleeding, that means the bacteria get in right in the system.
Yes.
I explain to
Absolutely.
my patients about those little ulcers and all of that, but for me, it's just direct. But, since I'm doing dental sleep medicine and systemic health is so important to me, I was always, every single day, I'm still surprised that I did not find the answer. How come people always come with a bouquet? It would be sleep apnea, high blood pressure, acid reflux, a lot of allergy, yes, mouth breathing, and periodontal disease.
Yes. Yes.
And
So,
direct correlation. Please tell what you want to share with the audience about that phenomena.
well, our oral microbiome is very much responding to the environment that they're exposed to. So if you're exposing them to sugar, we know that that is an environment that allows for our karyogenic bacteria to increase and create acid products that degrade our tooth. But for the periopathogens, they are thriving. They actually disseminate from inflammatory proteins. So if there's inflammation, they're going to grow in abundance. During the breathing process, if you're mouth breathing, you're taking in air in times, especially during sleep, in times where you should have a closed mouth system. And this is really allowing saliva and the oral bacteria to kind of recalibrate during your sleep and come back into balance. But if you're mouth breathing, you're introducing a lot more oxygen and not allowing that saliva to do its job because you're drying out the surfaces and creating an irritated landscape that then thrives on a low level of inflammation that just continues to provide food for these periopathogens. And once those periopathogens eat the inflammatory proteins, their metabolic profile shifts. And all of a sudden, they start to talk with our immune landscape differently. And this allows the rest of the bacteria to grow, to overgrow. And so you have this just huge, rapid accumulation of the total microbiome. And this is where we want to bring back balance. And so historically, we just remove them, right? We remove these bacteria, but they're important. So what if we just starved out their inflammation food source? So I have come to, all of my research says to target the inflammation side of the story. But it's very specific that the types of mechanisms that are at play in the mucosal tissue. And so if we just gently push the immune landscape into wound repair, it will turn down those inflammatory cytokines and start cleaning up. And then that food goes away, the periopathogens starve, and everything comes back to balance.
Fantastic. I would like to talk about your products. First of all, I'm gonna try them. I have two great flavors. One of them is Whisper Mint. How many drops should I take every morning to make sure my health is protected?
Well, you have a sample
Yeah.
vial. I have a full size. I usually do about a half a dropper and just move it around in my mouth. It tastes nice, and you can leave it
Tastes
there.
good.
There's nothing bad for you in our products. Everything is natural, and you can swallow it. But it's really about covering all the tissues and getting them moisturized
Moisturize.
and getting that niacinamide to the tissues.
So this one was a Whisper Mint. I took a little bit. Now I want to try citrus.
I've never had them back to back. How is it?
It's actually great.
Oh,
It's
amazing.
such a delicious taste. I don't even know which one is better. They both
Excellent.
taste absolutely fantastic. And people can have a choice between citrus and mint, but they have a very pleasant, I would even say like moisturizing, oily kind of consistency, really pleasant for the tongue and everything, and it's create a freshness. Absolutely. So tell me, what's inside those products? I know on a beautiful bag it says niacinamide and hyaluronan. Why those two components are so important to create healthy mouth?
Well, hyaluronic acid or hyaluronan is what we're using as kind of the delivery mechanism, but it's been used in dentistry for many, many years. In the EU, they have a very specific amount that is utilized for gingivitis and periodontal adjunct therapy, as well as ulcers and dry mouth. And so, again, there are sachets you can put into deep pockets with hyaluronan to help the periodontal pocket heal. But hyaluronan itself is actually a natural occurring molecule in our tissues that keeps us hydrated and gives us cushy skin. And it basically pulls in water to the system and keeps it very lubricated. It has other regenerative abilities, and it helps your immune system function correctly because it's helping the signaling pathways. The niacinamide specifically in this scenario is turning down or correcting the chronically inflamed neutrophil, which is an immune cell in our soft tissues that kind of gets overactivated when there's a lot of inflammation. And so when you correct that phenotype, you inspire wound repair in those tissues, and that's where you get the resolution.
I would like to ask you about fluoride, or in general about oral care. What you said was established 125 years ago to kill all the bugs. And I noticed, especially with the COVID, people crazy about sanitizers, mouthwash, all of that, just to kill every single bug possible. People don't even want to press the elevator button. They use, they're so, specific about we don't want any other bacteria in our body. So tell me, oral care and fluoride. What can you say about fluoride from your
I
scientific point of view?
I I will never demonize fluoride. I think that it will forever have a use in dentistry. I think that, your personal exposure over a lifetime, and that depends on where you live. There are places that are endemic with fluoride in the groundwater. All of India has
Mm-hmm.
far too much. And so, dose becomes an issue. But for the teeth, it is a helpful remineralizer. And when it does participate in the remineralization process, it strengthens the enamel significantly. So, again, I think it has been a useful tool in dentistry, and I will never throw out a useful tool. I do think that because of the formulations in our oral care products, we could either reformulate or
Mm-hmm.
um, just use varnish as a way to apply the fluoride. It has us accepting a lower dose as a
Mm-hmm.
daily value,
Mm-hmm.
but getting that protection nonetheless that is very durable. Um, I think that also
Mm-hmm.
fluoride is, there is no clinical trial that has us evaluating a drug that gives 100%, you know, cover to everybody who participated. So we have to keep this in mind for every single drug that's in market. It's never going to be 100%. And so there are going to be some people that are left out to dry and that are not covered by this drug. And fluoride is still, you know, of limited use for a certain percentage of the population. So the only indicated product for gingivitis today is stannous fluoride.
Uh-huh.
And I would say that it is, when it's formulated correctly, about half of the participants will get better
Mm-hmm.
gingivitis scores after
Mm-hmm.
using that for several weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some that actually get worse because
Mm-hmm.
they're irritated by the stannous usually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then there's some that have no change. And my point is this: it may work for some, half
Mm-hmm.
at best, depending on the formulation. But how many people are actually using it that are fit for purpose? Are they getting better? And are they being reevaluated for products that might be better for them when they're not getting better? And this is my main issue with all of dental care, because we just have very few tools and people are
True.
afraid to kind of go outside the box when they
No.
have to. There's a amazing case study that was published of this poor woman who for 2 years was put on stannous fluoride for her gingivitis. It took them 2 years to discover that she had a tin allergy to the stannous, and it was actually making her so much worse. And it shouldn't take us 2 years to say that this drug isn't working for you, you know?
True.
So to have other tools in market is essential. And I think that we shouldn't hang our hats on fluoride ever. I also don't think that we should throw it down the drain.
Yeah, no, that's a great thing. But I would like to ask you, what are early signs of inflammation in the mouth? What kind of can lead to inflammation in the gut? So, what as a scientist you can mention to our audience to be aware of?
Well, certainly anytime you see bleeding for anything, it is not a good sign. But oftentimes we don't sense inflammation in our mouths. Our tissues are very durable. They actually don't have a ton of nerves in them. So um, at least sensorial nerves, we have these textural uh, the periodontal ligament allows us to feel the chewing power of our teeth. But as far as nerve endings in our gum tissue, we can actually go a pretty long time without feeling pain, which is fascinating. And actually, sensitivity would be your first sign, because
Mm-hmm.
that means that your gum tissue has kind of puffed up,
Mm-hmm.
and the dimpling in your gingival tissue, usually it
Mm-hmm.
has a little kind of slightly bumpy
Mm-hmm.
um,
Appearance.
texture to it, but when it's smooth and rounded, that
Mhm.
means that's the first sign. It's not necessarily red, but it's smooth and rounded. That would mean that there's some initial inflammation, and certainly you would start to see blood if you're flossing regularly. And that's definitely something to note. But once it becomes more pink or red, depending on your ethnic background, you can really, start to see the gums pulling away from the tooth, becoming red and puffy and getting the plaque deposition at the borders.
Great. Thank you very much, Camille. And I want to mention Camille podcast, Let's Get Oral, and these beautiful products called OSSA to restore your microbiome. And they come in different flavors, and all flavors are amazing. And adding this to your overall health, and even my dog got excited. I think it's going to help your microbiome and eventually will restore your gingival health as well as the gut health, because this is the beginning of our long digestive system. So you can get all information about Camille underneath this interview, and I wish you wonderful journey with the new oral care products. Thank you very much, Camille.